Get this party started, guys.
Okay, so welcome everybody, Coldwell Banker family. There's a lot of guests out there too, friends, family that are tuning in for this Zoom call. I'm Chuck Whitehead with Coldwell Banker Associated Brokers. This is Peter Mendiola from Coldwell Banker West. What's happening, Peter? We're very excited. We have Nick Vujicic on today, and Nick is great. I've seen him before. We're super excited to have him. Nick was born with Focomeliae, right? Is that how I say it, Nick? Focomeliae, and Nick was born without limbs, without arms and legs. And I can just say this did not stop Nick, period. And you guys are going to hear that. Nick spoke in 74 countries. He spoke with the likes of Tony Robbins, and he's the author of Life Without Limits, which is a fantastic book. And we just want to let you know, Nick, we got about 40 companies on represented today, and hopefully in excess of 5,000 agents. And welcome, Peter and I, and everybody here are super excited to have you. And thank you very much for being here.
Chuck, Peter, thank you very much. Coldwell Banker, I'll never forget our last event and time together out in Vegas. And it's been an incredible change for everyone. But really, we understand that life doesn't seem to stop changing. And what I am just thankful for is just to share my perspective and reframing this as disruption. We know that normally in the entrepreneurial world, it's disrupting technology that pivots people toward a brand new trajectory. And in my life, being born without arms and legs has definitely helped me reprogram how my mindset is. Not that I'm bulletproof and not that I'm a guru to say that I don't go through ups and downs myself, but how do we keep a healthy mindset? And three things that we're going to cover today through this change, through this disruption, is number one, the importance of having good support. Number two, how do you keep your head up? And number three, it's up to you and your attitude. First of all, the big change for me is I'm washing my hands so much with COVID-19 that you can't even see them. And, it's been a big change for me and disruption in my normal way of life, where I used to be traveling about 50 days as a motivational speaker globally. And I have clocked in the last 15 years, actually 20 years, since 19 years old, 2,500 flights. And they say that I used to be the guy that runs so fast to leave my legs behind. And, it was difficult when I'm on the other side of the world and then, getting texts from home, I'm missing home and trying to balance business, economics of the world, and then my family life and what's important to me has always been a challenge. When you're doing something, especially as an entrepreneur or an associated realtor of any company, it's all about small business barriers and difficulties that we all go through. And so I've had the difficulty of obviously it's been a dream of mine, to stop traveling and just be at home and try reach the world. I just wish it wasn't out of desperation. There are sometimes we feel that change and disruption brings us to a level of disruption and desperation. And in desperation at times, we know that the biggest disability of all is fear. And even though I have now had, one of my greatest desires into try pivot towards webinars, the Nick Vujicic podcast, my YouTube channel, engaging on social media like never before with our 12 million social media fans. It's just been an incredible learning curve. It hasn't felt good at all in the meantime. And it seems like I'm even more busy right now because it's almost like a startup in the middle of a tornado storm with the normal bread and butter not coming in as a speaker with all the events canceled, and no one really knows, will it really open up in the next 6 to 9 months? Everyone can speculate. And I feel like speculation and the unknown is the fuel, obviously, to the fear. The fear of what does this mean for me? And in that, it's almost like I even went through a moment of shock of mental blockage, where I used to be able to look. I have 17 employees between my for-profit and my non-profit organization, and in that, it took me a bit to really come to terms with what is going on, and being okay with the fact that anybody I talk to don't really know more than me. And then the more you listen to, the news, the scarier it becomes. And then everybody's conspiracy and this and that. And so I just want to first of all say that for you to give yourself good support, you need to make sure that you're not feeding your brain and your mentality and your mindset so much negativity and adding fuel to the fire, wherein it actually might be one of the big things. And for me, that the way that I actually snapped out of this almost mental pause, in shock, in grief, in conscious and subconscious, if you will, responsibilities, that I'm the one that's responsible, if you will, as CEO, for the people who get their paycheck, and that added burden. And then looking at my wife and feeling deep down, man, I feel like I failed my family on some way, or I failed my team, or there was something maybe I could have done better, or someone told me on my team 2 years ago, Nick, you need to stop speaking and build a coaching speaking platform online. And then, people telling me 8 years ago, you got to slow down and figure out a different model, because you ain't going to do this forever, traveling like you are. And even though it's been an incredible ride for me, just because as entrepreneurs it's worked before, it doesn't mean that it's going to work in the future. Now, we know that the industry of motivational speaking, when it bounces back, probably actually much slower than the real estate industry, in the realtor section, because eventually people will have to sell or buy. And so as a realtor, I feel that even though everything's on pause, I feel like your industry is actually going to come back to life very quickly compared to the speaking industry, even the car dealership industry. The large events and all those kinds of things, no one knows when the next event's going to be okay to have 300 people together. There's speculation that another wave of COVID will come in the winter. Can anyone guarantee me anything else? No. But what we do know is that eventually people will buy and sell realty. Now, if everyone had 12 months of cash in a bank, then no one would be crying and no one would be in panic. But the problem is the general American, no matter who they are, they live beyond their means. And now this is a point where we stop and we figure out, okay, what can I control? And let's focus on that. And the first thing to have an importance of good support and foundation is to take control over our own thoughts and what we listen to and what we choose to believe. And in that, it might take a mental process for you to stop, redefine your goals, redefine what's important to you, and go back to even some priorities that are important to you that you don't even know how to deal with right now. Mostly when I ask my audiences, hey, give me the top 3 things that are most important to you. And one of them is family. And now that we're trapped in our home with our family, we're like, I didn't ask to become a homeschool teacher. I didn't want to be trapped in a prison of quarantine with my family, who I love and adore, but I just can't stand them and they can't stand me. What is going on? And I think we're all in the same boat. And that's the beauty of this. It's not about getting support from just, a guru or wave a magic wand, shoulda, coulda, woulda, or even going to support of others that may know something more than you. It's about knowing that we're in this together. It's about understanding that within your company, you have a support network to let you know that we're going to get through this. We're in this together. No one's leaving anyone's side. We're here. We will get through this just like people got through 2008, just like people got through 9/11, just like people got through 87 to 94 in California, I know, and here in National, just like the world got through 2 million people dying of smallpox in 67. Understanding now all the kerfuffle and all these things where flu comes once a year, and there are many, many things where people are wondering, but let's come back to the basics. Let's come back to the truth. You're not in this alone. Take captive of what your negative thought is, take it out and replace it with something that is good, true, noble, and remind yourself of what your long-term goals are. You know, when the stock market started crashing, I actually, Chuck, and just letting everyone know, we're going to start to open up questions and answer in about 20 to 25 minutes, and we'll do that for about 20 to 25 minutes. I saw some of the comments there, and we will open up for Q&A. But what I want you to know is, as the stock market crashed, I let my friends know who are heavily invested in the stock market, just letting you know, get ready for a 35% correction coming up in 3 weeks. Why did I know it? Because on the 3rd week of January, I emailed everyone saying, start watching the worldwide news. No one's talking about it in America. It's going to be bad. If you don't know what's happening in China, if you don't know what's happening in Vietnam, if you don't know that it's already going to go to, and I predicted that it'd be Dubai would be the next case, because of understanding the different aspects of my travels around the world, my friends around the world telling me what's going on. And I told my friend, I said, listen, get out of the stock market. Trust me, it only is going to go down. Pivot to gold if you want. That's what I told him. And he said, you know what? I'll be extremely surprised if it goes down 35, 40%. Guess what happened? It dropped 35 to 40%. And when I said, hey, I love you, praying for you, he said the same thing he said the first time. You know what he said? It's always good to keep the long term in mind. And guess what? Now his stocks came back. Did he sell? No. It's always good to keep the long-term view in your short-term vision, to help you, to motivate you to know, number one, what can I do now that's in my control? Mindset. Emotionally, how can I attach myself to someone who's going to encourage me? And it's not even attaching myself to someone who's going to encourage me, but actually the beautiful thing about knowing that we're all in the same boat is you don't know what your phone call could actually do for someone else who's actually in the same boat as you. And in this time where suicide is spiking, depression is spiking, alcoholism is spiking, child molestation is spiking, think of all the business leaders right now who are now at home, who took, private jets, and did this, went there. All the strip clubs are closed. You know what I'm saying? Like, the truth is coming out in understanding that some of us actually have to now face some things that we internally need to now fortify in our own value, in our own mindset, and to know that we need to have our priorities rechecked. We need to have our values and what's important to us rechecked. And when you come alongside of people who are having the same values as you, who you could either encourage in, hey, how you doing? Yeah, man, this is bad. I was just talking to my neighbor, Chuck. I mean, he's got a business in the wedding stuff, and it's terrible right now for them. They're not a car dealership. They're not a small restaurant, but they're not the big public gatherings either. And they're not even being talked about. And then all the farmers who grow flowers, everything stopped. They're all, so it's just everyone's affected. And you don't know, my friends, even if you feel like you feel very much of a fear of inadequacy or feeling, well, what am I going to tell anybody? It's actually an incredibly empowering, mental, intentional thing that you can do right now for your own mindset and health. and actually make a difference and miracle in someone else's life, just to hear someone else's voice, not text, not phone, but in the social distancing, to actually connect and reconnect with real friends, literally. And that has been an incredible thing that I've done for me, the importance of having good support, mentally, personally, mentally with friends. And that's the first point I wanted to make, Chuck. It seems like you want to interject and maybe ask me a question or something.
I do real quick. We're getting a lot of people that are asking if you would mind spending 10 minutes or so kind of telling your life story, because a lot of people are not necessarily familiar with you. So like a lot of people are saying, where's he getting this mindset? Where's all this stuff coming from? And your story is so phenomenal. Would you mind spending 10 minutes just kind of explaining your life, your journey?
My apologies. Yes, sir. So everyone, I was born without arms or legs. And I was born in Melbourne, Australia in 1982. And I'm 37 years old. Husband to my wife, Kanae. She's half Japanese, half Mexican. We call that Japsican. It was love at first sight. In Texas, I looked at her. She looked at me. And I couldn't feel my legs. And when I was a kid around age 8 to 12, being in Australia, being the first disabled kid to be integrated into the mainstream school system of Australia in 1987 as a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, with that national media attention and being a trailblazer for integration back then, it was quite a roller coaster for me of deep thought about my future, wherein it wasn't just the daily understanding that I was different to everybody. It wasn't just the daily battle of feeling like I am the alien and feeling like it's the world against me. I could have easily played the victim card as I asked my parents, why was I born this way? And there is no medical reason why I was born this way. And they said, don't worry, just know that we love you and God has a plan for you. And I'm thinking, man, none of this makes sense to me. There is no greater purpose for my life. If I'm just dependent on my parents, if my brother and sister have arms and legs, and I'm the only one in the school that's the biggest victim of bullying in my eyes, will I be now facing a lifetime of bullying, isolation, fear, loneliness? I will not get married. You see, I talk about it everywhere, where in our fear, we have two kinds of fear: rational fear and irrational fear. The rational fear is the sound thinking of considering the circumstances and what we do with what we sometimes cannot control, to figure out then what can we control and only then do what we can. The irrational fear is when we are hijacked and hacked into our brain, our heart, our mind, without a spiritual grounding of your belief of who you are, your value, your greater destiny, your long-term view and passion for life. Sometimes it's easy to get distracted off that, and then we become entangled in the biggest disability of all, which is fear, which then, if not controlled, it controls you, to the point that everything you do, say, and plan is actually, unfortunately, based on fear. How many fears, Chuck, have we had that actually never came true? And how interesting it is that as soon as we have an obstacle, that we get scared, and as soon as we get through it, we quickly forgot that we got through it. And then we're focusing on the next fear. It's almost like you never give yourself to actually be your best friend, be your best cheerleader. Give yourself just some time to try, reflect, be self-aware of, is this fear rational or irrational? And so the irrational fear drove me down to a 4 or 5 year depression at age 8 to 12. I attempted suicide in my bathtub at age 10. I had enough. I convinced myself I would never get a job. I would never be able to, even if I got married, hold my wife's hand. I convinced myself I would never be a father worthy of fatherhood, because I can't even pick them up when they're crying. I won't be able to walk my daughter down the aisle. I won't be able to pick them up when they're crying. And no one had any answers for me. And those were dreams where I saw never happen. As I tried to roll over in the bathtub and let the water come into my lungs, I was stopped by one thought. And it was seeing my mom and my dad in my mind, burying me, weeping, wishing that they could have done something more, and actually feeling guilty for me to actually go through a suicide. I didn't go through with it. My dad at age 6 and my mom, they were actually refugees leaving former Yugoslavia. They met in Australia in the 1960s. They said they actually did something amazing in my childhood. They didn't give me everything I wanted, when I wanted it, and how I wanted it, because that's not what the world offers you. And when I wanted something from the store, they said, get it yourself. Make money. Your brother takes out the trash, you figure it out. So I picked up the vacuum cleaner and I vacuumed the home once a week, twice a week for $2. And if I wanted something, I would do it. I would figure it out and not expect an entitlement situation. What was interesting to me in how all of these obstacles are not something I run away from. I don't run away from the word impossible, because there were many times when I wanted something so bad that when I really wanted it, I would try. When I failed, I would try again. When I failed again, I would try again. And in those situations where I actually was successful, I realized, Chuck, that I don't know what's impossible until I know what's possible. And I don't know what's probable until I actually put one foot in front of the other and embrace failure, not as a status or a concluding factor, but actually the process of success. Because we all know that no one has gone through their life of significant success without a magnitude of failure along the way. And it's because of that childhood that I didn't see obstacles as, well, I can't do this because of this. No. If that's what I want, how am I actually going to get it? How am I going to try? If I tried this way and it didn't happen, how will I try again? And for everyone here, it's understanding that we're all going to learn together. There's going to be some kind of revolution. There's going to be some kind of different norm. And it's not just in your industry, it's in any industry. We know that all small businesses are in 85% chance in the first 12 months, all small businesses fail in the first year. The other percentage of what's left, actually, if they fail, the bigger percentage is actually from success, because they never evolved. They didn't evolve as a CEO. Their team didn't evolve to adaptations, to technology, to industry movements. And this is just a simple evolution that's excruciatingly painful, that has put us in a tornado of an unknown. And the worst unknown, believe it or not, is knowing how long the unknown will remain the unknown. And what do I do until then? It's easier when an insurance check comes in. It's easier if a check comes in, because at least we can see what's going on. But in this moment, believe it or not, while you are not understanding what is going on or what you really could do, now take that energy, time, and focus. Maybe wake up earlier in your day so your kids don't distract you, and start your office day earlier in the day. Set up an environment around you until things open up. You can't just cross your arms and see what happens. Maybe take this time, like I have, to do a really good intentional self-awareness of, again, what could I learn from what has happened? What would I do different? What are the things that maybe could change that would be good for me? What's something in my life that's distracting me from actually putting all my attention into this? Is this what I really want to do? Is this what I really, really want still? Then stick to it. And for me, it's understanding again, do all that you can alone, number one, then get support of other people, and then even give yourself a mental break and an emotional chance to be edified by somebody else. And that's the true friendship and coaching. And that's the good importance of having that support. Because Nick would not have done anything without people around me. At age 13 was my first turning point of attitude to gratitude. I didn't have a healthy attitude. We're still thankful. I'm thankful. I'm alive. And I just buried my father 2 years ago. I have a wife. I know my life is temporary. I have 4 kids. I'm doing everything I can. I try to remain kind and humble in every situation. Am I a perfect husband? Ask my wife. No. Am I a perfect father? No. Ask my kids. But man, to strive for that in the most important things. And it was when I played soccer, Chuck, hurt my foot. I have a little left foot on the bottom left appendage of my foot. You can check videos out at youtube.com/Nick Vujicic, where I have my podcast there. And you can see me. We have a little video of me skydiving, golfing, doing a backflip on the trampoline. I've done surfing and all this kind of stuff. And in our mindset of defeat, we need to get out of that and still be thankful for what you have, what you've learned, move forward. At age 15, I had a pivoting, life-changing year at age 15 for my faith. And believe it or not, then at 17, my janitor at my high school looked at me one day after I was recently elected on the student government board. And he said, "You're now on the student government board. You're going to be a speaker worldwide." I said, "Excuse me?" The biggest fear in the world is public speaking. And after 3 months of him telling me, please, 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 let me set up your first speaking engagement, I said, no, 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 no. And he twisted my arm after 3 months, and I said, yes. And my palms were sweaty, my knees were shaking in front of a group of 6 students. Talked out of my heart. People were crying. I looked into a girl who was crying. And you look into people's eyes and you see their soul. And when I looked into her soul, she found hope. And one of the early speeches that I had, was a girl coming up to me, hugging, crying. Thank you, thank you, thank you. No one's ever told me that they love me. No one's ever told me that I'm beautiful the way that I am. And that's when I knew my greater purpose was to be a communicator of hope, being though one kid at once who felt like there was none for him. And I realized when you don't get a miracle, you can still be one. We all have a story. My story is not more important or more difficult than anybody else's. Pain is pain. Brokenness is brokenness. But hope is hope. We know that hope doesn't come from money. Money's good. Nothing wrong with money. But if you put your security and confidence in rhythm, security and confidence of what people think of you, security and confidence in money, everything's temporary. I want something sure. And that was my pivoting point where I started speaking. I read a book that changed my life, Chuck, Money Secrets of the Rich by John Burley. I started financial literacy at age 17. Went into the stock market as a teenager. You could do that in Australia. Went into real estate investing at 19 and graduated at 21, double degree accounting and financial planning in Australia. And when I felt the calling to come to America, I actually took a $300,000 loan from a friend at 10% per annum, interest only, to leave everything behind in Australia at 23 to come to America. Why? It's not that I needed the loan. It was my mom she didn't want me to lose my money. So I left everything in Australia and I said, Mum, I'll even prove it to you. I'll take loan money, because I knew that I was convinced that this was supposed to be the step for me. And ever since then, it's been a wild ride, incredible ride. I've been on television to 1 billion people in China, 1 billion people outside of China. I've done 3,500 speaking engagements. And the biggest engagement that we had was hundreds of thousands of people lined up in Ukraine, in Kiev in 2017, with 53 million people watching on live broadcast TV in 26 countries. I'm a youth advisor now for anti-bullying campaigns for 3 national governments, and helping governments understand that we all have value. And so no matter who we are, no matter what disability we have, that we all deserve a chance to live all the way. And so that's the story, Chuck.
It's great. That's
Nick.
Hello?
Go for it, Peter.
Awesome. One of the questions that came through was, I'll sum it up. How do you encourage people? Because a lot of people out there need help, but they don't ask for it. A lot of people might be in a dark place right now, but they're embarrassed. They're not willing to reach out to anybody. What would you say to them?
You know, it takes, I was asked one day, what is my definition of greatness in one word? And it was humility. Because if you have humility, literally swallowing your ego, swallowing your pride, if you don't have humility, it is the detriment of not just your character, but it's the detriment of your full potential. We're not just, let me go back to surviving in a second, but in the thriving world, if people believe that they didn't actually need help in any way, shape, or form, they would never have asked anyone for advice. They would never read any book. They'd never go to any seminar. We know that in the thriving world, learning is the key. However, that is wisdom and knowledge and understanding. However, you and I know, and I'll tell you transparently, do you know how difficult it is for a speaker to do this? When on the inside, it doesn't feel that way. When you have a limit of emotional, mental distractions around you, you can't function in any area of your life until you actually address the issues that need to be addressed by. And some of us, unfortunately, due to our culture sometimes, due to our childhood, due to maybe some people who betrayed us with the transparent information that we gave them, we do know though that we do need somebody, and we cannot do this alone. I went through counseling for me. I couldn't, and it was something that obviously I can't even take myself to the restroom, right? As a kid, I needed help. And it was the amazing beauty of, it's not just understanding that you need help, but can you imagine someone who's depressed, thinking of suicide, and someone calls them, says, "How are you doing?" And that one sentence helps. And I'll never forget those people who did that for me. "I'm thinking of you. Hey, don't just pick up the phone." How cool would it be that one day, 10 years from now, "Hey, do you remember that thing that happened in 2020? You know, COVID? Oh yeah, that thing. You gave me a call and you'd have no idea, but you really helped me. Thank you for your friendship." I think the understanding of those ways in validating purpose and your value as a human being, it also goes both ways. It's an understanding and humility that you and I and everyone all need a a handing help, a helping hand with encouragement. I think encouragement is massive. And you might be a miracle for someone else, even when you don't get a miracle. So it's not about saying much or how you feel, but just about saying what's going on and talking it through. And it doesn't mean that, I think one of the last things I want to say, Peter, with that is some people hesitate to call or talk to anybody because we already conclude, well, they're not going to be able to help me anyway. And I can't help them anyway. So what's the point? No, mentally, consciously and subconsciously, if you do it, you will see the effect of that. And in fact, you might find that you may need to call someone once a day, not maybe the same person, but actually even write down a list of 3 or 4 people that you call on a weekly basis. How you doing? What's going on? How the kids? What are you? Just friendship. And I have to say that was the detriment to society in understanding how important it was to keep up those friendships and connectivity face to face. We've lost that. The true, authentic communicating, not just the good posts on social media and not just the texts. And so I think that is forcing us as a society to rediscover the value of that friendship and even the greater purpose in you being a friend in someone else's life too. Community during social distancing, where connectivity through social media disconnected us. Put that in a book. I mean, how does that even, there's 2 oxymorons there. It's ridiculous.
Awesome. Well, I know we got a lot of questions, Peter. What else we got, buddy?
That's a great message. It doesn't matter if you're a realtor, if you're a math. Yeah, I was saying that's a great message. It doesn't matter if you're a realtor or a math teacher. Making those calls is very important. And it's going to touch people, including helping yourself.
Can I also say one more thing, Peter, with that? I encourage people to actually write a letter to their best friend or good friend or teacher or somebody. It's just good to focus on the good and actually tell people, hey, do you remember that? Yeah. Thank you so much for being there for me. Stuff like that, man. It's just, you can't get enough of that. You can't give out seeds of love and encouragement and affirmation, but also finally thanking the people that you actually haven't thanked, or even saying sorry to. Some of us are still trapped in things that have happened years ago. It's just, this is such a good time to stop and address things that maybe we'd not have addressed before because we're so busy. So, an opportunity.
True story. True story. What else we got, Peter? I know there's a ton of questions I'm looking at, everybody.
Let's see. You answered a lot of them.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So one of the questions is, how did you vacuum? Can he explain?
Yeah. So I got the vacuum cleaner on my shoulder. So I'm actually standing on the ground, right? This is me sitting. This is me standing. So I had the vacuum on my shoulder and my chin, and I would basically do this. And we didn't have a big house when we were, children. And so I did it once a week and figured it out. And it was really cool. It gave me dignity. It set me goals. It taught me patience. It taught me discipline. It helped me to just understand that, with this, no one knows what Nick could really do. And no one's actually going to determine what Nick's going to accomplish until actually Nick puts his mind to something. And that's the important thing here, if I can just pivot, since there's no real other question at this point.
I got a couple.
Go for it, Chuck.
Here's a big one, man. It says, I love this one. This is from Sandy Finley. She said, what would you tell your 16-year-old self if you could go back and visit you?
It's bigger than you think. It's better than you think. It's quicker than you think. and less is more. At 37, if I had those things to say, that's what I would tell myself 20 years ago. I think for many years I got hijacked by many good ideas and vision, and all of it's valid. I've got a full business plan for 8 different dreams that I will never actually do. And I don't know, and they're actually standing the test of time, every single one of those dreams. And they would be valid. And if I gave an investor this, they would run for it, probably. One of them is about building a stadium of 35,000. I figured out how we could actually make a stadium of $220 million for free. It's unbelievable. And it actually really makes sense. And I actually made that business plan before Washington, D.C. changed the law for crowdfunding and crowd investment platform. Now that dream's actually possible. And I tell you, it's bad to focus on the good and then you sacrifice on focusing on the good where you just should have focused on the best and for you. I think I've wasted a lot of time in that sense of focusing on the good, but really holding on to the main thing that the main thing remains the main thing. And I'll never stop sharing about my faith through the nonprofit organization, Life Without Limbs, that I have, which enables me to talk about my faith and encourage people in that venue. But motivationally speaking now, I've done 74 countries. And I think I've traveled a whole lifetime of anybody's dreams. And now it's becoming a father. It's becoming a husband. And it's doing less. And I'm replanning all of this with me also saying that my motivational speaking business, all the faucets closed up before anybody knew anything about coronavirus in America because I had international engagements. And I haven't had any good news in my business yet. And we don't know if any good news is going to come. But it's forcing me to refine, regroup, and move forward. And I don't see this as a bad thing at all. I had a couple of weeks of mental block, a week or two of panic. And then with my own coach, Christine Grimm from Aria Consulting, not many people. See, the other thing is this. This is the first time I'm actually sharing this on a public thing. Many people think that I'm just a speaking head. I'm a leader. I'm a CEO of small companies, very small companies. And I also have a corporate coach who helped me. Her name's Christine. And we're about to now talk about, leadership now. What do we do now? How do we pivot? How do we consolidate? And trying to map all this out for other CEOs. I want to help people on an individual level, a focus group. And it's incredible where I know what value I have to CEOs and companies, and my mode of operation will actually probably change. You'll see less of Nick speaking to multiple companies on multiple stages, and we're pivoting in such an interesting, cool way. But no one really knows that, Nick's not a guru. Nick's not saying, I've got everything together. I have my coach, and I have my friends, and I have my family, just like you. And you may not see them as a coach sometimes, but having this thing as a coaching session, if you will, just to know that you don't have to do this alone. And that's the key, I think, to it all. And I think we must understand the importance of those things. I said, don't ask me to repeat those 5 things because I've already forgotten it, but you got it.
Hey, Nick, you mentioned having a mental block. So when you have those moments where you have a mental block or a sense of depression, if you get those, how do you overcome them?
To know that you can't do anything sometimes and you got to ride it out. It's like a rogue wave on an Australian beach that sometimes you just get caught up in the rip curl, man. It's bad. You know, I've been in California for 15 years and the water's too cold out here. But, you know, when I got caught in a wave, it was just nuts. And you don't know what's up and down, left and right. Your brain's not there. It's humbling, man. When you're a CEO and you're making 20 decisions a day, while you're on the phone, you're texting people, you know, another decision. And then you got a PR fire. And then you've got a potential PR war coming up that we're hearing of. You know, like, this is not just Nick here in America. It's me, you know, understanding what it looks like to be someone in the spotlight. I can't go cognito. I can't, you know what I mean? It is a sacrifice that I have chosen to make and do. And everyone who's on my team understands that we have a lot of different things going on. And if you're part of Nick's team and you think things are just about to settle down, nothing settled down in the Nick Vujicic world. I just tell you that. And it's getting ahead of what you can do. It's not fearing the worst in anything. And whether it's business, whether it's this, whether it's that, keeping the main thing. And if you're in a mental block, when you're in a mental block, you can't snap yourself out of the mental block if you're blocked mentally. Which means a positive attitude and willpower isn't enough. Because when you're in the mental block, you would will to get out if you could. Which then is a humbling fact that willpower alone is not enough. Intellect is not enough. Desperation, blah, 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 is not enough. And so with everything we've talked about, Peter, there's only one other thing that I would give yourself to get yourself fed from yourself. Good support is give yourself time. No one's superhuman. And so give yourself some time.
Awesome. So one of the themes I liked, and this is kind of exciting to watch where you go from here, Nick, because obviously, I mean, dude, you're inspiring, you know, hundreds of thousands of people across the planet. But one of the things is I was on a call yesterday, and it was everybody was going around talking about the positive things that have happened from the COVID situation here, and they've talked about how they've reconnected with their family, they've reconnected with, you know, they're closer to their kids now, they're going for walks, they're going for hikes, they're doing all these different things. And it just seems like you've got the right attitude, and you're about to make some changes to your business that are probably going to be lasting forever based on this. So, I mean, where do you think Nick's going to go with what you've gathered up in the last month or two from here?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to make a disclaimer that I am very sorry for everyone who's affected. None of this is easy. None of it. And so I'm sorry for each of you. I really am. And I'm hoping and praying that everyone's going to be okay through this, and you and your family will get through this. With that now said, we have a joint venture with Noble Education Initiative, which is, I'll say two things, which is our education initiative. You've all heard of social emotional learning. Texas was the first state to make it mandatory in every public and private school to bring in a values-based self-awareness, society awareness, based on collaborative, academic, social, emotional learning. That acronym is since the 80s. But because of the fact of testing years in the school system with school safety, suicide, bullying, and no one really teaching anybody yet decision-making processes that affect them and other people on a values-based vertical. Noble Education Initiative has come up with the Attitude is Altitude curriculum. And the educational online space has been nothing but incredible for that. And we are going double down on that. And we're giving away some lessons for free at aiacurriculum.org. Videos from me to parents, students, and teachers, bringing in this on now digital to the end consumer to help in this time. So check that out. The other thing, Chuck, for me is I know that I'm not starting a big realty company, even though when I moved to Dallas, we're selling up in California to regroup. I might get a realty license there, but I'm not going to make a big thing, I'm not going to make a big coaching platform of coaches and coaches. I'm not going to whatever. And as I see, I think that for even me, I want to pivot towards now setting me up as a strategist for corporate America. I am well known outside of America. 80% of our 12 million social media fans are outside of America. And now I really want to help corporate America pivot. I don't want to travel internationally anymore. We've halved our price, half what you paid me, to do what we did years ago in America for speeches because I just want to stay in America. But I'm not really looking for so many more clients, Chuck, as much as two things. I'm actually looking for big companies who wants to see me as a chief motivational officer where I can help build up their team, come on online Zoom calls just for their team to help them. And basically, instead of me having 55 clients a year, I'll be only having 5 clients for 5 years and do a multi-year deal with speeches, with calls, with coaching on that, on a corporate and all the way down in the teams to actually do that and be that. And it would just bring the whole fact of less is more and stop spreading myself out. It's really interesting, the oxymoron of doing less but diversifying more. And that's basically what we're pivoting towards. And the Nick Vujicic podcast that can be found on youtube.com/Nick Vujicic. I just interviewed Les Brown. It's up on Monday. I just started looking at YouTube as a tool after 600 million views around the world. Never used it, really. And so we're using that with the podcast to then monetize. And it's been an incredible thing, though, that I'm not just partnering with people that just look at me as a money thing. But what we want to do is someone that, we partner with that I believe in their morals and their values, like Storyville Coffee. They actually donate most of their net profits to organizations leading the charge against human trafficking. And so they're my friends, and, we give people an opportunity to subscribe to the coffee that I've been drinking and will never drink anything else, delivered to my door for the last 4 years for me, knowing that I'm a reason for someone else's freedom. That's what I'm talking about. And so mission-minded big corporations who, give back somehow as well on the back end is really important.
Awesome. Peter, any more questions before we close out?
Man, I wish you were taking on smaller clients. I'd love to be coached.
Hey, I don't know, guys, but if you guys want to call, we could certainly make a call. I just want to say that I just want to make sure that I hit this.
Definitely going to.
Yeah. Keeping your head up. I want to encourage all of you. Remember 6 months ago, Remember 12 months ago, what was the biggest thing happening? Who were you 3 years ago? In that perspective, to sometimes look at today, you sometimes have to make sure you don't forget yesterday. Because the choices you have, when your attitude, perspective of all of this comes back to your intentional capturing of mentality, thoughts, vision, short-term and long-term goals. Don't be your worst enemy. Just keep treading water. Keep treading water. And even if you get caught in a rogue wave, eventually that wave will also pass. And just as those previous storms and challenges have made you wiser, stronger, more humble, don't forget that. And one very last thing is, my last financial crisis was 2011. And I realized at that time that when we go through that and we feel like, man, this is so hard, in the end, we're wiser, we're stronger, and we're still here. And this little disruption that seems huge right now, you're gonna make it. We're here for you. And I want to thank Coldwell Banker for allowing me to speak into your lives, to encourage you today. So Godspeed.